Do Black Lives Matter to Christians? I have to be honest. I don't know. I mean, my Facebook feed is loaded with the hashtag, the profile pic filter, the chain posts, the outrage, the copy and pastes, and on and on and on from people who call themselves believers. I have no good reason to doubt the sincerity of their faith or their activism. Many are making the claim, Black Lives Matter. They say it. I'm just not so sure. Ostensibly, the phrase Black Lives Matter is a protest against the unjustified deaths of black individuals. These are usually violent deaths that involve someone else killing a black person. In other words, we're talking about the murder of black individuals. Now, last I checked, murder is wrong, and murder targeting or affecting a certain ethnicity over others is particularly disconcerting. After all, that was the point of the Holocaust, and the point of any number of evil events throughout history. Now, these Christians and many others are pushing back against the All Lives Matter rebuttal. They'll say something like, if you're in a neighborhood and a house is on fire, you don't scream that the fire truck needs to go to all the houses. All the houses matter, but one is on fire. But the one on fire is the one that the truck needs to go to. That's the one you focus on. Fair enough, right? Except for one small problem. The only house these firefighter protesters, rioters, and yes, even Christians are talking about is the smallest house on the block. Is it on fire? Sure. But so are all the others. See, the neighborhood is the unjustified black deaths neighborhood, or the murdered black individuals neighborhood. Here's the house that represents cops who shot unarmed black individuals. Yeah, it's on fire. Here's the house that represents blacks murdered by whites. Here's the house that represents whites murdered by blacks. Oops, sorry, that house is in the racist neighborhood. Here's the house that represents black individuals who are murdered by other black individuals. Here's the freebie, the one no one wants to talk about down at the end of the block. This is the house that represents black Christians murdered for their faith in Nigeria. Here's the other one right next to it, the house that represents black lives that died before being born. All of these houses are on fire. In theory, none of them matters any more than the rest. So what if we turn these houses into bar graphs? Just look at that for a second. Those are people. Those are dead people who probably should be alive. Let me add the black abortions graph to show you the scale of all of this. So again, here's the house Black Lives Matter is raging about, and here's all the rest. This is the most recent data I could find for every one of these categories. Are all these lives of equal value? I tend to think so. Someone unjustly dying before their time is bad. Murder is bad. Murder is evil. Duh. So if Black Lives Matter is only focusing on black lives, don't all the black lives who are lost to injustice and lost too soon, don't they matter? Apparently not. If you're echoing this rhetoric, answer me this one question. Name a black individual who you feel embodies BLM. Odds are they're not from Chicago. Odds are they're from a tiny minority of police-caused black murders. Not a good category, but a very small category. Now, there's like 300 names of murdered blacks from Chicago in this year alone, but I've not heard anyone screaming Black Lives Matter that knows a single name coming out of Chicago, a single name of a single murder victim, and there's hundreds to choose from. And we're only in June. Several of the weekends in May and June were particularly deadly weekends in Chicago. Baltimore and Detroit are not exempt from this phenomena either, and from BLM there's only been silence about these deaths, these injuries, and this injustice. When I was observing a protest a few years back in Arizona, there was a person who yelled, "All lives matter," and they were shouted down. Someone responded, "All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter." Let me correct that, until all Black lives matter, and not just the ones that make the news and the narratives. Then no, Black lives really don't matter. Only the narrative matters, and only the bodies that can prop up the narrative matter. Is BLM really about the lives of black individuals that are lost to injustice and lost before their time? Is BLM really about black murders? Or does it really mean the only black lives that matter are those that were lost to causes that can be used for political gain? To paraphrase one black YouTuber, black lives don't matter unless they're taken by a white man or a cop. Because in that case, sure, black lives matter, but to bastardize Orwell, some matter more than others. Is turning a blind eye to black deaths and murders that don't fit the narrative a form of black fragility? Sure seems that way. The murder of George Floyd was bad. It was awful, and it never should have happened. For every one George Floyd, there are 288 black men murdered by other black men. For every one George Floyd, there are over 100 black Nigerian Christians murdered for their faith. For every one George Floyd, there are 40,000 black abortions. So, Christian, tell me, is your outrage proportional? How many outrage minutes did George Floyd get from you, and how many outrage minutes did these other lives get from you? Aren't they all equal? Aren't they all gone? Don't they all matter? Do Black Lives Matter? I don't know. You tell me.